We're on page 14, beginning of chapter 2. First I went and told my mother, then I went and told Jamie. Why should we do anything for her, he asked, which is exactly what I thought. I don't know. I ground the toe of my shoe into the floor. Now, Jamie, is that a nice way to talk? That was Jamie's mother. She was holding Jamie's baby brother on her shoulder, burping him. Jamie also had a 4-year-old sister, Martha. He was the oldest in his family. I was the youngest in mine. By far the youngest. My brother was married and my sister was in college. It's a job, I said. She's going to pay us. Well, Jamie got that faraway look in his eyes. It might just be a lot of fun putting my feet all over Mrs. Hauser's grass. I laughed. It would be fun. And I bet every kid on the block will feel the same way, I said, smiling. Can we take Martha for a walk while we go around and ask the kids? Jamie asked his mother. He really meant it. He didn't think of Martha as a pest the way most brothers and sisters think of each other, like my sister thought of me. Of course, we went to Heather's first. Next to each other, Heather was our best friend. She tossed that golden hair of hers and said she'd love to help. Just let her know when. Just as soon as we can go up the street and tell everybody, Jamie said. Just think, I said, being in Mrs. Hauser's yard with permission. She guarded her property as if every inch was a diamond mine. We didn't stomp around on her lawn. Really, we were very careful, but sometimes a ball or something would get out of control and roll onto our lawn. She screamed like a wild beast. She would threaten to call the police. Once, she threw the ball at Heather. She missed by a mile and we couldn't help it. We all laughed. Okay, so at this point I want you to take a sticky and I want you to write down how is Jamie's family life different from the narrator's. So you should write this in a complete sentence. Say Jamie's family is different because, while the narrator. Once you're done with that sticky, I also want you to describe what the neighborhood children think of Mrs. Hauser. Write in a complete sentence. We're near the middle of page 16. All the way to the top of our hill, our friends were interested in helping scrape Japanese beetles off of Mrs. Hauser's grapevines. Martha was excited too. We would have to let her help a little. I've never been so far, she said, looking down the hill toward her house. Where is your school? It's about 2 blocks that way. I pointed in the direction of school. Can I see it? Sure, Jamie said. Come on, let's show Martha our school. I looked down the hill, then at the sky. We don't have permission. Besides, it looks like it's going to rain. Oh, a summer shower. Come on. It's only 2 blocks, and Martha's never seen my school. He was so nice to Martha. I didn't exactly agree with going, but I went. I always had a hard time saying no to Jamie. We didn't get a block before blackness blew in from nowhere. It was no summer shower, it was a summer storm. Jagged yellow lightning and booming thunder sent huge splats of rain down our heads. Martha began to wail. Let's get under a tree or something, I said. Jamie frowned. You know, under a tree is a very worse place to be in a thunderstorm. I know, I said, but we have to do something. We were huddling Martha between us, and she didn't like it. You know the safest place in a thunderstorm is in an automobile, Jamie said. Oh, sure. Jamie was great with impossible solutions. Just snap your fingers and your chauffeur will appear. Instead of snapping his fingers, he stuck out his thumb, hitchhiking. I thought he was kidding until the first car along stopped. The man in the car leaned across the seat and pushed open the passenger door. It's a little wet for walking, don't you think? He asked. Yes, sir. Could you give us a ride home? Jamie, Big Mouth, asked. I bumped him in the rear with my knee. Do you know him? I whispered. Nah, he replied casually. Come on. He climbed in beside the driver and hoisted Martha to his knees. Swallowing hard, I climbed in behind them and closed the door. Where do you boys live? The man asked. I was glad Jamie answered because I was tongue-tied. What are you doing so far from home with such a little girl? He asked. We were taking my sister for a walk. We were going to show her the school. Don't you know better than to hitch rides? I could be a kidnapper, you know. My whole insides fell to my toes. I felt Jamie's knee pressing into mine. I could see the man holding us for ransom, or killing me and Jamie and taking Martha. Here's the turn, Jamie said. His voice squeaked. I didn't breathe until the man slowed the car and began to turn. Then Jamie and I looked at each other and grinned. At the same time, the sun burst through the clouds in streaks of angel wings. Right down here at the bottom of the hill, Jamie said. I looked surprised. I wasn't wanting to be let out of a strange car right in front of my house. Reading my mind, Jamie said, well, if somebody sees us getting out up here, it will look suspicious. Do me a favor, will you, boys? The man said. Don't hitch rides. The next person to stop for you might not be the father of one of your schoolmates. Jamie and I both shook our heads and said, Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Martha mimicked, but she really didn't know what was going on. She was glad to have a ride. She had settled down as soon as she was out of the rain. My mother was standing at the door, staring. As we got out of the car, she came down the walk with her hands on her hips. Who was that, and where have you been? She had the uncanniest ability to suspect things. It seemed she could see me with my thumb stuck out, and I hadn't even stuck out my thumb. We took Martha for a walk, Jamie said quickly, and one of our schoolmates' father brought us home when the storm came. Jamie had a quick tongue. I was grateful for that. Okay, I want you to pause and take a sticky, and I want you to give me a piece of evidence that shows that Jamie, the narrator's friend, is also a good kid. So what does Jamie do that shows he has a kind heart? Again, write in a complete sentence. You would start that sentence with Jamie has a kind heart when he, and then explain what he does. Also, I want you to take a note of another piece of evidence that Jamie thinks a little differently than the narrator. So, how is Jamie different from the narrator? And provide another detail from what just happened. Say Jamie is different from the narrator and that shows when, and write your complete sentence. We're near the middle of page 21. Uh-huh. My mother sounded suspicious. And what is this friend's name, may I ask? I looked quickly at Jamie. Ed Chambers, he said. Smooth as anything. That was Mr. Chambers who brought us home. Ed Chambers' father would be surprised to know it. He was a nice man, Martha piped up with her tiny voice. He took us home from the rain. Well, all right, Mother said. I just wondered where you were during the storm. She headed toward the house, and Jamie and I rolled our eyes at each other. We took Martha home and went next door to check the grapevines. We thought the rain would have chased the beetles away, but those beetles were waterproof and still clinging. Jamie ran around the neighborhood gathering the kids, while I got the jars from Mrs. Hauser. So, on another sticky, I want you to provide a piece of evidence that shows that Jamie is quick on his feet, meaning he's able to think up ways to get himself out of trouble.